guys all ready to go? All right. All right. Good evening. Thanks for being here. I'm Mark Ghilarducci, the Governor Newsom's director of his Governor's Office of Emergency Services. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the situation in Kern County in the city of Ridgecrest. As you know, over the last couple of days, there have been a series of earthquakes that have occurred in the Ridgecrest area, specifically around China Lake Naval Station. And tonight, around 8:20, there was a second very large quake, magnitude 7.1. The quake did last for some time. It was felt widely throughout, most of Southern California and even as far north here as Sacramento. The shaking intensity was very significant. Looking at our algorithms run through what we call our HAZAS, our hazard analysis algorithm, the shaking intensity was at its highest level in and around China Lake and just adjacent to the town of Ridgecrest. We have significant reports of fires, structure fires, mostly as a result of gas leaks or gas line breaks. There are gas line breaks throughout the city. There are also reports of water main breaks. Power is out and communications is out to parts of the community. As well, south of Ridgecrest in San Bernardino County, the town of Trona, a small community of about 2,000. There are reports of also some building collapse and power outages and some gas leaks there as well. We'll give you briefings from the various agencies that are represented behind me to talk about conditions on our roads and some of the other impacts. Here at the State Operations Center, we are fully activated at the highest level. Earlier tonight, Governor Newsom did talk to the White House and requested a presidential emergency declaration to support our operations here in the state and provide federal assets and what we call direct federal assistance in support of all of the mutual aid assets that we are currently providing to mostly Kern County and some to San Bernardino County. Governor Newsom activated the State Operations Center at its highest level tonight and provided really right now a significant amount of fire and rescue mutual aid from the Los Angeles, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Fresno County areas to include urban search and rescue teams, fire strike teams, firefighters, hazardous materials response units, emergency medical services, ambulance strike teams, and personnel. In fact, roughly over 100 mutual aid personnel have been dispatched in support of these various fires and the support of both Trona and the town of Ridgecrest. It's important to note that Ridgecrest and Trona are both very remotely located on the eastern side of the Sierra, and the roads have been impacted, and getting resources into the area continues to be a challenge. It is a little bit of a benefit that just 2 days ago there was a 6.4 earthquake that occurred there, and we had a number of resources already deployed in the area in support of Kern County. We were able to then turn those resources around. They had just been released shortly before the 7.1 and allowed us to have a pretty significant amount of resources available almost immediately. We have been in contact with both the mayor of the city of Ridgecrest. Both myself and Governor Newsom have talked to the mayor, talked to the police chief. We've talked to the county of Kern fire chief, and we've talked to San Bernardino County, and are coordinating here at the State Operations Center with all the state agencies, as well as those county departments, to ensure that any resources that they need are being provided. Huge priorities right now for medical support and for firefighting and for emergency power. We have been in contact with private sector utilities, both the water department, our gas and electrical utility providers, to ensure that they have enough resources to try to get water and power up and restored as fast as possible. The quake happened at roughly around 8:20 tonight, and so it got dark pretty fast, and situational awareness is sketchy because, you know, the power's out and there's not a lot of lighting. So we know that as the day breaks, we'll be able to get a better assessment of the total amount of damage. Throughout the night tonight, though, we are working to move assets and resources in place or into staging areas so that we can have those resources immediately available in the morning in those communities as necessary. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to several speakers behind me. They're going to brief on what their agencies and departments are working on, and then I'll come back and answer any questions you may have. So I'm going to first turn it over to Deputy Commissioner of the Highway Patrol, Scott Silsby.
Good evening. I'll be really brief. Just as a reminder, it's a really remote area. The good news is that it being the holiday weekend, all law enforcement and EMS had ramped up and had extra resources available, so that's very helpful. As far as CHP responsibilities, quite a few of us are out there on the handling the road closures with Caltrans, and from there, our folks peel off and go check the structural integrity of overpasses and roadways with Caltrans, and so far, other than what Director Kim's going to tell you, we're hearing pretty good news. From there, their secondary mission is to assist the local law enforcement. So right now I'm hearing that the calls for service have dropped considerably, and that most of the calls are being covered pretty well. So as the director said, when daylight comes, we did have aircraft up too, but couldn't see a whole lot. So when daylight comes, we'll have a much better idea of what's needed. But the good news is the resources there are handling the situation well, and there's more resources going in the morning. So I'll be ready for any questions if you have any. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Major General David Baldwin, the Adjutant General of the California National Guard.
Thanks, Commissioner. California Military Department is mobilizing and deploying a joint task force to the impacted area that will include about 200 security forces, sustainment troops, which are logistical support, and aviation assets, including helicopters from the Army National Guard and cargo aircraft from California's Air National Guard. We've also alerted the remainder of the California Military Department, so all of the California Army National Guard, the Air National Guard, and our California State Guard in the event additional resources are required. I've also spoken with officials at the Pentagon, so if we need any help from out of state, from the active component, or from any other state's National Guard, that help will be on its way. I'll be followed by Chief Tom Porter from CAL FIRE.
CAL FIRE is prepared to respond with any of the state's resources that we have and that might be needed for this. As of now, we see that fire potential is pretty low for this weekend or moderate, and so we'll be able to use some of those resources from California's fire department to meet any needs that are unmet. Also, our Office of the State Fire Marshal is working with the liquid pipe and fuel providers to ensure that their pipelines are safety through our pipeline safety program. So, I will be followed by David Kim, Secretary of Transportation Agency.
Thank you very much. I'd like to update you on the status of 3 roadways. The first is State Route 178. There is significant damage on 178 as a result of a rock slide across both lanes near Lake Isabella. There are also severe cracks in the roadway just outside the township of Trona, and this is very close to the location where cracks were discovered as a result of yesterday's event, which were repaired quickly within a few hours by Caltrans maintenance crews. There is a full closure of State Route 178 in 2 different locations. I'll read them to you. From the San Bernardino-Kern County line to 14.7 miles east of the San Bernardino-Kern County line, there is an additional full closure at 4.1 miles east of the junction at State Route 184 in Kern Canyon due to the rock slide. The cracks on 178 will be filled by Caltrans maintenance crews with cold mix asphalt. A couple of other routes that were impacted were State Route 127 and State Route 190. There were rock slides on both routes tonight. They have both been cleared and both roads are now open. And I will now be followed by Health and Human Services.
Good evening, Mark Meach, Deputy Secretary at the California Health and Human Services Agency. We have fully activated and have deployed resources both at the Emergency Medical Services Authority, the California Department of Public Health, and the California Department of Social Services. We're in close contact with all of the healthcare facilities in the region and have been in communication with them to ensure that they have all the resources they need to take care of the patients that they have in those facilities. And we also are working with the sheltering task force here within the State Operations Center through our Department of Social Services. Thank you.
Before I take questions, say earlier tonight as well, we had a conversation with FEMA Region 9 Administrator. FEMA is now present here at the State Operations Center, and as a result of the governor's request to the White House, FEMA activating 2 incident management teams from Northern California in support of this operation. Right now, our big concern, obviously, is that it got dark fast, so good situational awareness of the total amount of impact is where we're really looking to get better fidelity on when the light comes up. In anticipation of a need, and in our discussions, preliminary discussions with both the police chief and the mayor, we know that there's been quite a bit of damage, and we know that there's been a lot of impact. So we are moving resources from these various agencies and departments that are represented here into staging area to get them as close as possible into the theater of operation, mainly because it is such a remote area. Really, the state is really positioning itself to ensure that, at the direction of Governor Newsom, that we have every available asset put in the right place and available to respond whether they need it tonight to get there, but definitely at first light as resources are needed. If they're not needed, then we can scale back and redeploy them or demobilize them. The key, though, here is that this was a very large earthquake, and we also know there's going to be a series of aftershocks as a result of the main quake. So we want to prepare ourselves and being able to have those resources in place as the days go on here. This is not going to be something that's going to be over right away. We will be in 24/7 operations here at the State Operations Center in support of the counties until the situation is fully mitigated. So with that, happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Were there any injuries reported? People
There have been a number of injuries reported. Don't have a total number of injuries. I don't know of count on injuries or fatalities. We have not had any reports of fatalities yet, but we do know that there have been injuries. There's been a significant increased number of EMS calls to the 911 centers. And in talking with the police chief, there's been requests for a strike team of ambulances, as well as the fire units that are on scene have been doing emergency medical care of individuals who may have been injured by a lot of falling debris or what I would say non-structural items falling and injuring individuals.
Can you repeat the main priorities? You mentioned medical support, firefighting, and a few others.
Yeah, so our main priorities are going to be in support of the counties are continuing to protect lives and property and environment through providing mutual aid assets for fire, emergency medical services, hazardous materials. We are concerned this area does have a lot of pipelines going through it, and that we want to ensure that we have enough hazardous materials response. We'll continue to coordinate emergency response operations, both for state agencies and with our federal partners, in support of what the local governments need. We're going to be making sure we can get critical infrastructure back up as soon as possible. Those are the lifelines: water, power, gas service, and making sure wastewater and those kinds of things are all fully operational. We are concerned about, there's a hospital that's been impacted, and there's a number of care facilities. We want to make sure that those facilities and those individuals, those vulnerable populations, needs are met, and we want to take that into account. That'll continue to be a priority for us. And then we just want to make sure that the public continue to remain informed of what to do, and to know that there's going to be aftershocks, to prepare for those aftershocks. We suspect that individuals may not want to go back into their homes initially, so sheltering operations will continue to be a primary focus for us in support of what the local government's doing. Red Cross has already been engaged. We are providing additional support with several thousand gallons of liters of water, cots, comfort kits, sheltering supplies, and also ADA compliant bedding for individuals who may need that. And FEMA has also supported several thousand commodities as well that they're staging at Edwards Air Force Base. We'll just continue to meet any unmet needs moving forward. So those are really going to be our continued priorities in the next 24 to 48 hours.
I know you mentioned that some people are leaving tomorrow morning, heading over there from here. At what time will that be?
So there's people that are deploying there now. We're staging them in close, so there'll be people leaving all through tonight and tomorrow, and they're coming from all over the state of California. We're deploying them. Many of them are closest resources like fire and emergency medical and search and rescue, but members of the National Guard and other state forces are being deployed from throughout the state from tonight through tomorrow, and pretty much for most of the day tomorrow until the situation is mitigated and the resources aren't needed any longer. Okay, any other questions? Okay, great. Well, we'll have another follow-up press conference in the morning around 10 or 11 tomorrow. So, thank you very much.